Hi there. Welcome to a little demonstration on how to implement MVEA Stage 2 using AIM instead of using SharePoint lists and SharePoint websites. So I'm very excited about this. For the last sort of 10 months, I've been working with Architecture in Motion, implementing basically a native MVEA capability within that tool. So this is really bringing together, and I will be doing an update to the book with details, further details. This is a very quick demonstration on the huge amount of time it can save you, and that's not to include then, and I won't be able to cover all the other things that you can do with AIM. This really is just that first part. So, why AIM? AIM is web-based application architecture platform. It allows you not only to do visualizations yourself, upload your own visualizations using the Archimate standard. It also has an integration with ChatGPT. A very rapid development of models. Linking with ChatGPT allows you to pull in a whole bunch of information from AI and really generate a bunch of content which you can then use with your customers. We're not even going near that element. This is just that first part. So AIM, an important element here is AIM has a capability of uploading Excel data or data from Excel spreadsheet, shall I say, and from that can visualize directly. And that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be taking the MVEA Excel spreadsheet, which is MVEA 1. What I normally do is take that and load that into SharePoint. What we're going to do is take that and load it into AIM. Now, MVEA Stage 1 is the simplest, of course. It produces a couple of core deliverables. The first is this view, which is the first highest level indication of the impact of your technology, specifically applications, on your organization. And that overlay with color coding, where red says you're going to retire and blue says you're investing, is your first view of being able to play back to your client. I can understand where change is happening in your organization, where you're investing. We can create a current state and a target state, and we look at the projects where that's how we create the target state, and we produce something like this. A roadmap which says, here's your current state at the top, here's your project, sometimes it goes left to right, and here's your target based on the current projects. And that's your first real chance to engage with your clients to say, this is a view snapshot of where you are right now. It's not where you want to go. Let's start planning and having a 3-year roadmap or more, and start building up a proper strategy going forward. Now, when I do this with MVEA 1 and loading it into SharePoint, just roughly, it's a 15-week, possibly even 15-day, 3-week, possibly 4-week exercise, depending on the amount of information that's available. It takes the first 1 to 2 weeks, if you look at the top here, to collect the data normally. We create an inventory spreadsheet. We might take a day or two to load that into SharePoint, and a couple of days to draw the diagrams. Even those simple diagrams, even when we've got a template in place, it can take a day to get those diagrams in place. With AIM, because you don't need to learn Visio, you don't need to worry about setting up SharePoint, you can take that data and within 15 minutes have created, have loaded it, put it into the right format, within 30 seconds we can load it, and within a couple of minutes we can manipulate the diagrams and actually start to talk to our customers. This is high speed visualizations and manipulation, a very, very exciting way of being able to very quickly go back to your client with some results, some visualizations and results, and some insights that you can start building on. Now, AIM uses this format. On the left-hand side, the first column is a name for whatever the object is or the element is. The second column, the B column, is the type, which relates directly to the Archimate types. So we're going to be using business function for our org unit. We're going to be using application component for our application. Then the next column is the parent. That shows the hierarchy. So in other words, you can see here that Salesforce on line 4, the sales funnel management is part of Salesforce. Salesforce is an application component that's part of the sales business function. So that level of hierarchy allows AIM to build the diagram. Now there's also a description. We feel this is important because you can have a name, and we need to have a description that defines what that is, because names can be a little confusing sometimes. And then you can add as many as you want properties that you can use against those elements. So for example, the status of the org or the status of investment. You could have assessments. In fact, all the data that we could collect. Now, for this demonstration, I've just kept it basic. So we need to take, for our MVEA, if we're going to have a look at our MVEA spreadsheet, we've got all of this stuff here. Now, there are only three sections that we're interested in. The first one is, of course, the list of applications. The other one, actually, the first, if you really want to know, the first is the org unit. So these are the organizations. And I had to do a little bit of tidy up on these because when I set these up, and I give this away free, I hadn't made sure 100% that everything was precise enough. And that was okay. You could deal with it when you're just loading it into Visio and you fix it up in SharePoint. Then there's the applications, which of course becomes the application overlay. And this particularly, I was using this users department, and as you can see, not particularly precise. So I had to do a bit of tidy up there. As I said, it was about 15 minutes in total. And then the other thing we're going to use is the projects, and had to do a little bit of work to change this layout that I used with all the applications so that it was in the right format. But it wasn't a terribly onerous task, and if you were doing this from scratch, you probably wouldn't use necessarily the MVEA1 format. You'd go straight to this format. Here is the format. It's called MVEA Data Upload, and there we have, first of all the business functions, including the hierarchies there, and then the applications sitting down here. And again, the applications are linking back to sit underneath those particular organizational units. So I'm now going to close that because AIM requires us not to have that open. And I'm going to open up my AIM window. This is what you come up with AIM. There's a lot here. We're going to go straight to the enterprise section, which is where the MVEA functionality exists. We're going to add a new view set. You can see I've already added a few there. I'll call this MVEA demo. There's a number of elements. You can put it in the description and other elements that you can do with your views. These view sets and the views, and I've named that wrong, so let me just correct that. Let me create a new one. I'm going to create a new one. Now we'll do an MVEA load. Save that. In fact, I'll just go back to that just so that I don't confuse things too much. Let me fix my little error there, and I've updated that. And in there, and in here we have the actual MVEA load. So this is where I'm going to load the data up. And just a few clicks. Click on the upload icon, upload files, navigate to where that exists. I know where it is. That then reads it. As long as it'll come up with some error messages here. If you haven't got it right, you can go in and fix it. 52 rows, that looks about right. Again, you got another chance of checking that this is what you want. Click on import, and there you have your first diagram. Now, it doesn't quite look like, at this point, exactly what MVEA 1 was, but if I just go and I think turn off wrap at this level, you will now see, as per our little diagram here, we had the corporate sitting up here. There was legal inside there. We had sales, we have business operations, and we have finance services. If we take to our new MVEA, we've got corporate, we've got sales and marketing, we've got business operations, we've got finance services. I've added in legal teams as a separate item, which actually makes sense, really. And I've got another one called general support systems, which allows us to be more complete than we even were under that first MVEA version, because it actually covers a whole bunch of applications which everybody uses. So that's actually a more complete and useful. Now, here we've got, as you can see, all of the properties that are brought in, and we don't want to necessarily see all of them. We've also got descriptions here. So I'm just going to turn off what's known as turn off the documentation. That takes that out. And I'm going to turn off a couple of the properties that are shown here, particularly current status and target status. Those ones are the ones. In fact, I'll turn off the others as well, because we're only going to want, for the moment, an application scoring at this point. And the deployment as well. So this now, looks pretty close and much cleaner. We can always see what it looks like as an image. By clicking on here, and this is automatically now taking that one that I got left, the assessment score, and keeping that with the legend at the bottom. So you can tell straight away that these applications are in a poor assessment state. Now, if we take off this display just for a second, just to show that we can do the shading in exactly the same way as we had under the Visio, but look how you do it. You click on shader, you click on current store. It is automatically using shading, and which can change, by the way. It's automatically using this because I've set it up beforehand. But here, for each of the properties, you can choose the color coding that you want for the different values. So obviously completely flexible there. This is just stuck to the standard that I've been using in the other sets. So now if I go to the image, I've got an image which, look at that. That's basically the diagram that I had before. In fact, if anything, it's a little bit neater, I would say. So I can literally just copy this and let's say start up a Word document and just paste it in here as being my top level of my roadmap. And of course, what I'm going to want is a target version of that. We just want to change this. Let's go out of display image and say, well, show me what the target is. And that's the target view. Click on display image and copy that. And I now have a target view here. There's your current view. Here's your target view. We're building a roadmap. It's taken me just minutes. Now let me show you now how to create the projects, because I've also created a list of those projects. So we're going to load those in as well. Let's go and create a new view here called projects. I'm going to just load that up now. Of course, same thing. We're going to import the file. I've set it up already. It's in the same format. We've got 22 of those. Let's import those. This is now brought in the projects, and also of particular interest is that it's now showing these are the projects, and I'll just shade this again. Oh, I can't. These are the projects, and these are the applications that are impacted by those projects. So they're already loaded up and there. And here, if I just pick the right area, is the project portfolio. By the way, I can move dates around. I can modify this if I wanted to. In this case, I'm going to do a snipping tool, and I'm just going to snip this here like this, and I'm going to paste that in there. And I have created, within the shortest space of time possible, a roadmap equivalent that would have taken me days to create, potentially, particularly to set up this architecture repository. And yet here in AIM, I now have available an architecture repository. I've already loaded the data in. Little things here, you can see that it can show you that this B2B external interfaces appears in the projects list. If I then added another architecture diagram somewhere else, particularly in the projects area, it would then start showing all the places that that object existed in, because those objects persist now within this environment. And that means as I'm loading up more and more stuff, I'm adding more and more data to my database with all the fields and all the elements associated, properties and so on associated with it. I can then start using all of the rest of the power of AIM to build my application and architecture repository as I go. And each time I'm adding to it automatically. So that's the demo. That's how we would use AIM. And for me now, it seems very hard and old and clunky to use any other tool when this is actually performing this for me, and I can modify with all of these buttons, and of course, more particularly, create content directly from ChatGPT to expand and enhance. For example, I can ask ChatGPT to categorize some of these applications. I can ask it to review the projects or review the architecture diagram to tell me what is of risk. I can ask it to add descriptions to all the applications and more. I won't go on any further. Thank you very much. That's the demo of MVEA Stage 2 loaded into AIM in minutes instead of days.